we got to focus on the systematic impact of this disclosure or great unveiling. It would have to be like a civilization reborn, because you have to look at the complexity of it, the economics, the education. If we accept the evidence, the impossible Ubatuba magnesium, the FBI's etheric memos, and the different correspondence in those documents, and the non-human DNA described by Danny Sheehan, we are forced to ask, how do you tell 8 billion people that their reality is just one channel on a much larger dial, and that these beings are coming from these other frequencies or dimensions? And the first pillar to move is economics. If these craft are rendering matter from some other higher dimensional loca, we are looking at the end of scarcity, possible free energy. Our entire global economy is based on the limited supply of resources. But if we master the isotopic engineering Garry Nolan has found in his samples that he identified, we move into an era of alchemical industry. Energy becomes free, and manufacturing becomes as simple as a frequency shift. And could CERN be able to do this type of thing? The stock market doesn't just crash, it becomes obsolete. And then number two, the theological reckoning, right? For religion, the shock, paradoxical, for some, the existence of these higher dimensions or lower dimensions validates ancient scripture, proving that the spirit world was actually a higher dimensional reality, or possibly a lower dimensional reality all along. For others, the language of demons invoked by officials like J.D. Vance and others creates a terrifying new paradigm. We aren't just looking for God, we're looking for the architects of the simulation. And that could be very different than our idea of God. And then you got the legal and educational pivot, right? Our legal systems are built on the personhood of humans. So if Danny Sheehan's sources are right, and we have biological NHI that share our space, the law must expand to include interdimensional rights, or the rights of them. Maybe it's not ethical to shoot down these craft. And then you got the education. The education will undergo the most radical change since the Enlightenment. Physics, biology, theology will merge into a single field of study. What would they even call it? Vibratory reality? I don't know. We will stop teaching children how to live in the world and start teaching them how to interact with the layers of the veil. If the veil thins, how do they reveal that? They don't do it with a single speech. They can't even do it with a single file dump. They would have to do it through like a controlled acclimation. And I think that might be what we're seeing, this slow rollout disclosure. First, they would have to reveal the hardware, which is the UAP sightings. Then they reveal the materials, Garry Nolan's isotopes. And finally, they reveal the occupants, the interdimensional biologics, this DNA that's not of this world. We are currently in the middle of this process, I believe. The FBI vault files were the breadcrumbs. The Large Hadron Collider is the door. The great unveiling isn't coming, it's happening. And once you've touched the third rail, there's no going back. Well, I hope you guys are interested in an extended episode, because a lot of things have been developing. I was already working on an episode about metamaterials, Ubatuba, Maury Island, the UFOs that drip molten metal, and then people recovered the materials. And Dr. Garry Nolan of Stanford University ran tests on the metals and discovered that they were highly anomalous. And I was going to do an episode about that, and I was going to cover Dr. Astrid Stuckleberger, the whistleblower, who basically blew the whistle on CERN, opening up portals and beings coming through the portals, and how this could have affected our reality and basically shifted timelines. And that could be one of the reasons why reality seems so strange and weird. And, just the whole interdimensional hypothesis. And then we got the war.gov/UFO file dump. And now I just don't know how to proceed. So I think we're going to do a combination, like a mix and match episode. We're going to cover all those things, and we're going to cover the files from the recent file dump, the UFO file dump from war.gov, and some of these photos from NASA. And there's one that's really crazy. It's a triangular craft that was photographed over the horizon of the moon by Apollo astronauts. And there's plenty of documentation. And some of the documents are basically retreads from previously declassified docs. But I think being put out in this format with the footage and the photos and the other correspondences, like France's UFO organization Meta communicating with NASA, and correspondence basically just, giving them advice on how to disclose this topic to the public, really reveals that NASA was very interested in this subject privately, while publicly they were saying there was nothing to see here. And basically, that's been what's been going on all through history, that there's nothing to see here. There's nothing to it. This is all conspiracy theory. But then behind closed doors, we find all these classified documents that a lot of people had to fight long and hard through FOIA to get released. And we're discovering that the reality of the situation is totally different from what they've been telling us. So you're going to want to stick with me for this episode. It's going to be awesome. I think at the end of this, you're going to be questioning reality. Danny Sheehan has made some explosive claims about non-human biologics, DNA tested and proven that they're not from Earth. That's crazy. And then you got the Dr. Garry Nolan and the metamaterials, and that's not from Earth. And then we're going to look at some of the cases and how these materials were acquired and some of the strange synchronistic events that surrounded those cases. Namely, a gentleman that was involved with the JFK assassination, a lot of people dying mysteriously that were surrounding this case, witnesses and intelligence officers that were trying to fly the material after they had got it from the gentleman who witnessed the craft, Harold Dahl. So there's just a lot of crazy things going on with this episode. So you're going to want to stick with me. There's a lot of clips. There's a lot of footage. And I think you're going to really, really, really be extremely entertained. So stick with me. I'll be right back.
Danny Sheehan, he is the founder of the New Paradigm Institute, a nonprofit lobbying Congress to declassify all these documents, and the attorney for a former Department of Defense whistleblower named Luis Elizondo, who has disseminated some of this information. So I'd pass it. What will we find?
Well, what we're going to find out is that there is an element deep within the Defense Department and the operations director of the Central Intelligence Agency that has been committing perjury to Congress, lying, denying the fact that they have recovered a non-human origin extraterrestrial spacecraft and the bodies that they've now DNA tested and know to be non-human.
You're saying...
What if the greatest secret of the 20th century wasn't where they came from, but how they got here? In 1947, a declassified FBI memo gave us a warning we weren't ready to hear, that these beings don't come from another planet, they come from an etheric plane that interpenetrates our own. To the ancients, these were the locusts and the talos, dimensional layers of a reality we are only now beginning to map. Fast forward to today at CERN. Whistleblowers like Dr. Astrid Stuckleberger allege that we aren't just smashing particles, we are piercing the veil, creating portals, that we are poking holes in the very fabric that keeps these dimensions separate. But here's the third rail truth. We've been picking up the debris of these breaches for decades, from burning slag that fell over Maury Island to the impossible magnesium fragments of Ubatuba. We have physical matter that defies the laws of 1940s industry. And now, Dr. Garry Nolan Let's put these metamaterials under a modern microscope, and what he found changes everything. It's not just metal. It's engineered at an isotopic level that was impossible then and is nearly impossible now. Is it waste, or is it a physical scar left behind when a craft rips through the veil? Today we are connecting the dots between ancient cosmology, secret FBI files, and the bleeding edge of particle physics. Welcome back to UAP Truth 33. Today we are touching the third rail. June 21st, 1947, 2 weeks before Roswell, Harold Dahl was patrolling the waters off Maury Island when the sky literally glitched. 6 donut-shaped craft appeared, but they weren't just flying. They were struggling to maintain their form. This wasn't a smooth arrival. According to Dahl, one craft appeared distressed, ejecting tons of white-hot metallic slag. This wasn't just industrial waste. It was high-energy discharge. When the material hit Dahl's boat, it didn't just cause damage. It caused a biological tragedy. Dahl's son was severely burned, and his dog was killed instantly. In the FBI Part 3 files, the focus was on the hoax. But look closer at the anomalies. The witnesses didn't just see saucers. They described a localized environment that felt wrong. This is the hallmark of a Tala, a lower, denser dimension colliding with our own. The heat of the slag or entropy of that collision. The FBI's interest wasn't just curiosity. It was a recovery mission. When Captain Davidson and Lieutenant Brown took off with samples of this metamaterial, their plane didn't just crash. It suffered a catastrophic engine failure, a fire that felt like an echo of the Maury Island event itself. 2 intelligence officers died, protecting scrap metal.
Sailed to Maury Island to see for himself. He found the debris exactly where Harold said it would be, covering the beach for hundreds of yards. Some pieces were still warm. Then he looked up. One of the craft hovered silently for 5 minutes before vanishing. He had the proof, photographs, physical evidence, and now his own sighting. Later that day, a stranger arrived at Dahl's door. Black suit, black hat, brand new Buick with no plates. And somehow this man knew every detail about the event. Harold Dahl had just met history's first Man in Black. The stranger in black sat across from Harold at a diner in Tacoma. He ordered breakfast, but he never touched it. He already knew Harold's name, the names of his wife and son. He knew everything about the incident, the craft, the debris, Charles' burned arm. He knew about Sparky. He even knew that Harold was hiding on the island watching the craft. The stranger told Harold to keep quiet or bad things might happen to him and his family. Harold ignored the warning. He talked to family, friends, even the press. And the next day, the story hit the papers. Then the tragedy started. Charles vanished. Weeks later, he was found in Montana bussing tables with no memory of who he was or how he got there. And a few days later, he was hit by a car. Then Harold's wife became suddenly ill. His business was vandalized. His family was constantly threatened. Harold got the message.
Now, could this be why Dahl later claimed that this was a hoax? And this was the system attempting to patch a hole in the simulation. But Dahl had already handed the physical evidence, the slag, to Fred Chrisman. So the breach was already out of the bag. And that was a mistake, right? Because this was fatal cargo. Why? Because as document 6751 suggests, the military knew these materials weren't terrestrial. They were vibratory matter, physical anchors to a world we weren't supposed to see. The hoax label was the first brick in the wall. If the public knew that reality itself could be pierced by beings we didn't know even existed, the panic would be uncontrollable. So they silenced the witnesses, buried the slag, and left us with the tragedy that the history books tried to erase. Just the fact that the dog died instantly and the son was severely burned shows that this is a trend, that people, when they come in contact with these craft, it usually ends in injuries or death. And that when these craft actually materialize in our reality, sometimes it's a violent affair, and sometimes there's a discharge. And Garry Nolan's been studying this for a long time. Garry Nolan got a piece of a similar situation happened in Ubatuba, Brazil, where debris was ejected, a slag type of debris. And Garry Nolan actually put it under the microscope. And he actually saw that the reads, the atomic signatures, he said it seemed like it was built with very complex alloys that were impossible to duplicate then and nearly impossible to do with present-day science. To understand why Garry Nolan's materials are impossible, we have to look at the map of where they come from. The FBI Memo 6751. The author doesn't use the word alien, he uses the word etheric. And this isn't science fiction, it's ancient geography. In Vedic cosmology, our physical world is just one floor in a skyscraper of existence. Above us are the lokas, planes of higher vibration and subtle matter. And below are the talas, denser, more material-focused realms. And this is what they were quoting in 6751. Think of these dimensions like radio stations. We are tuned to 101.1, the dense matter station, right? But the beings mentioned in the FBI files, they live at 101.5. They are always here, interpenetrating our space, but invisible because our receivers aren't tuned to their frequency. This is why a lot of people say, that the UFO phenomenon is related to consciousness. And then this is why we got to start looking at CERN. And CERN is the Large Hadron Collider that is in Switzerland, and basically this is where they collide these particles at these near light speeds. And they're trying to create enough energy to nudge matter from our loca to theirs. And whistleblowers like Astrid Stuckleberger suggest we've already succeeded, that we have opened portals or windows into these etheric planes. This is the third rail connection. If you want to move a craft from the Boulevard Loca, the etheric, into our world, you have to render it into dense matter. And the Ubatuba magnesium and the Maury Island slag aren't just parts of a ship, they are the physical residue of that transition. They are atoms that have been vibrated into our reality, carrying isotopic signatures that simply shouldn't exist in our version of physics. We aren't just looking at visitors from another planet. We're looking at the neighbors we forgot we had. And they're finally breaking through the walls of the simulation. And I'm trying to just kind of explain frequency and vibration and why they say that consciousness is involved in all this. There was an isotopic fractionalization Nolan found to the high energy environments created in particle accelerators. This slag is the physical proof that the veil is thinning. And when these craft manifest in our reality, sometimes it's a violent occurrence. But my sources specifically mention specific strange lit risks.
In 2012, scientists at CERN were conducting groundbreaking research on the Higgs boson particle, often called the God particle, due to its crucial role in the universe's mass. During this period, an unexpected event occurred. The hypothesis suggests that their experiments may have triggered a disruption in the fabric of space-time itself. This disruption is theorized to have led to the destruction of the universe as people know it, and a shift into a parallel universe. This concept proposes that what people now experience as a human universe is an experimental construct created by an unknown entity, possibly for observing the outcomes of their manipulations. Some researchers argue that this could explain mysterious events, such as the Mandela effect, where large groups of people remember events differently from historical records, and other strange occurrences that defy conventional explanations. Exploring these theories reveals that CERN's research is both groundbreaking and carefully controlled.
CERN is dealing with radionuclear research, but it is more than that because there are lots of physicians, I know some, they're doing very strange experimentation. There are beings from portals coming in and out. It's physicists from the CERN who told me this.
In a stunning revelation causing a scientific stir, a physicist has made an astonishing discovery that might completely change how people understand space, time, and human place in the universe. The report reveals that there appears to be a secret portal deep beneath the complex underground facilities of CERN. This mysterious gateway could lead to dimensions and worlds far beyond what people currently know.
If the Maury Island slag was a scar from a 1947 beach, then the Large Hadron Collider is a surgical laser aimed directly at the fabric of our reality. Since CERN first powered up, the world has felt different. Mainstream calls it the Mandela effect, collective memories of a history that no longer matches the records. But in the context of FBI Memo 6751, these aren't just memory lapses. They are timeline shifts. Because when we smash particles at 13 tera electron volts, we aren't just observing reality, we are vibrating the station itself. According to some theories, we are literally knocking our reality into a neighboring loca, shifting the rendering of our collective past. And there's this particle that they call a strangelet. It's a theoretical particle, a cluster of dense quarks that slowly consume a normal atom. Could they possibly be creating, unintentionally, some type of strange matter? A single stable strangelet could theoretically trigger a chain reaction that converts the entire planet into a dense, strange mass that we wouldn't even be able to comprehend. A literal collapse from a higher loca into a permanent thala or some kind of dense dystopia. Is it a coincidence that as CERN reaches record energy levels, UAP sightings are spiking? Or is the veil becoming so thin that the etheric beings mentioned in the FBI vault are no longer just observing, they are trying to stabilize a reality that we are accidentally tearing apart? We are touching the third rail. We are looking for the God particle, while potentially inviting the destroyer. Because when you rip the veil, you don't just see what's on the other side, you let it in. And it's strange that outside of CERN, there's the statue of Shiva. Kind of makes you wonder, because the talas and the locusts, that's from Hindu literature. That's from Hindu religious teachings from back in the day. Is there some type of vibratory shift happening? Exactly the kind of frequency change document 6751 claims the craft used to travel. Could this slag have been a failed or contained substance?
Astrid Stuckleberger's explosive claims. Dr. Astrid Stuckleberger, a seasoned expert in public health who has collaborated with international entities like the World Health Organization, has recently made some startling claims that go well beyond typical scientific debates. She argues that CERN, the European Organization for Nuclear Research, known for its groundbreaking work with the Large Hadron Collider, is not just exploring the fundamental particles of the universe, but is also allegedly engaged in a covert nuclear program. According to Dr. Stuckleberger, this program's details are being kept hidden from the public for reasons that remain unclear. But her revelations take an even more dramatic turn. She suggests that beneath CERN's massive underground facilities in Geneva, Switzerland, lies a secret portal, a kind of gateway to alternate dimensions or realities. Dr. Stuckleberger claims that through this hidden doorway, beings, possibly from other worlds or dimensions, have been coming into our world and leaving it undetected.
For decades, the word alien was a safe harbor, a way to talk about the unknown without breaking our understanding of physics. But that harbor's gone. Now, the language has shifted. Something far more ancient and unsettling. Representative Anna Paulina Luna and other members of the Oversight Committee have begun using a term. This is the interdimensional hypothesis. And it's no longer seeming like a hypothesis. During closed-door briefings and public hearings, the conversation has pivoted. They aren't just talking about the hardware, the nuts and bolts, or beings from other planets. They're talking about biologics, but also interdimensional beings. Some, influenced by the sheer strangeness of the encounters, have even invoked the word demonic. In the context of the talas and the locus, in the Hindu cosmology, the lower, darker dimensions of Vedic cosmology, this isn't just religious hyperbole. It's a description of entities that exist outside our moral and physical laws. And some of them, they claim, appear to be reptilian. But more importantly, it doesn't even fit into our Darwinian tree of life as we know it. We're talking about things that may have been printed or rendered rather than evolved. And this brings us back to Garry Nolan and the Ubatuba fragments. If the metal is isotopically engineered, why wouldn't the pilots be? And some have said that these grays are nothing more than just like avatars, like just drones that they use. And if you're traveling through the locas or other dimensions, your body must be as much of a vibratory anchor as your craft. We're no longer asking if they exist. We're asking what they are. Are they etheric beings of the FBI vault? Are they the demons of our ancestors? Or are they the biological interface of the simulation itself? And the DNA doesn't lie. The veil isn't just thinning, it's being dissected. Is it possible that this whole reality that we're experiencing, this conscious experience, is it possible that this is a creation? That all this is just some other reality's creation? Could it be just some type of way for them to experience an existence different than their own, kind of like the way we play video games or watch movies? Could they be running experiments and tests to see how we react to certain things? Could this be some type of schooling or educational program for souls or consciousness before we elevate to the next level? Or if we don't do things the right way here, maybe we have to go to the lower levels. And this explains why some officials are afraid of disclosure. They view these interdimensional entities as inherently hostile or fallen. And then there's like a synthetic life theory, right? That maybe this non-human DNA or impossible metals, if the craft were manufactured at the atomic level, the beings might be like biological UAPs. Maybe the craft themselves are alive. Engineered suits for consciousness to inhabit while visiting our loca or dimension. It's something that we really have to consider. Is there like a biological imprint of the NHI? I don't understand. I mean, I've been reading these things and looking at these sources, and it's really just blowing my mind the more I dig deeper into this rabbit hole. If reality is as complex as a multi-layered simulation or a series of interpenetrating dimensions or locas, the revelation wouldn't just be a news headline. It would be a fundamental software update for human civilization. We got to focus on the systematic impact of this disclosure or great unveiling. It would have to be like a civilization reborn, because you have to look at the complexity of it, the economics, the education. If we accept the evidence, the impossible Ubatuba magnesium, the FBI's etheric memos, and the different correspondence in those documents, and the non-human DNA described by Danny Sheehan, we are forced to ask, how do you tell 8 billion people that their reality is just one channel on a much larger dial? And that these beings are coming from these other frequencies or dimensions. And the first pillar to move is economics. If these craft are rendering matter from some other higher dimensional loca, we are looking at the end of scarcity, possible free energy. Our entire global economy is based on the limited supply of resources. But if we master the isotopic engineering Garry Nolan has found in his samples that he identified, we move into an era of alchemical industry. Energy becomes free, and manufacturing becomes as simple as a frequency shift. And could CERN be able to do this type of thing? The stock market doesn't just crash, it becomes obsolete. And then number two, the theological reckoning, right? For religion, the shock, paradoxical, for some, the existence of these higher dimensions or lower dimensions validates ancient scripture, proving that the spirit world was actually a higher dimensional reality or possibly a lower dimensional reality all along. For others, the language of demons invoked by officials like J.D. Vance and others creates a terrifying new paradigm. We aren't just looking for God, we're looking for the architects of the simulation. And that could be very different than our idea of God. And then you got the legal and educational pivot, right? Our legal systems are built on the personhood of humans. So if Danny Sheehan's sources are right and we have biological NHI that share our space, the law must expand to include interdimensional rights or the rights of them. Maybe it's not ethical to shoot down these craft. And then you got the education. The education will undergo the most radical change since the Enlightenment. Physics, biology, theology will merge into a single field of study. What would they even call it? Vibratory reality? I don't know. We will stop teaching children how to live in the world and start teaching them how to interact with the layers of the veil. If the veil thins, how do they reveal that? They don't do it with a single speech. They can't even do it with a single file dump. They would have to do it through like a controlled acclimation. And I think that might be what we're seeing, this slow rollout disclosure. First, they would have to reveal the hardware, which is the UAP sightings. Then they reveal the materials, Garry Nolan's isotopes. And finally, they reveal the occupants, the interdimensional biologics, this DNA that's not of this world. We are currently in the middle of this process, I believe. The FBI vault files were the breadcrumbs. The Large Hadron Collider is the door. The great unveiling isn't coming, it's happening. And once you've touched the third rail, there's no going back. So, let me know what you guys think. Stay tuned, stay vigilant, and remember, the truth is out there, just at a different frequency. This is UAP Truth 33. You've been watching The Third Rail. Please hit the like, subscribe, share it to a friend, share it to 2 friends. I'll see you tomorrow. Peace.